Hey guys, JC Smith here. Well, I keep saying it, winter's coming, winter's coming. I think it might be here. Temperatures have been in the low 30s here recently, so last night we built the first fire in the wood stove for the season. Now, this wood stove is what we use as our sole source of heat. I guess it is what we use. It is not our only source. Okay, we do have a propane furnace that I think I turned that off. Well, I installed this wood stove. I think we figured it was 6 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago. And when I did that, I shut the power off to the propane furnace and I shut the valve to the propane. So we haven't used it in 6 years. We've used this stove solely. That's been our heat. Well, that's not true. In the really cold times, we have some of those electric fireplace looking things that we have on the two farthest ends of the house, so that if the fire would go out in the middle of the night or something weird, they will kick on. But this is our primary source of heat, and we will burn just about 5 bundles of slab wood a season with this stove. We usually bring our wood in a laundry basket at a time. It's all in the wood shed and it's covered up so it's dry. Now, if that is full, that will last us all day and all night. So it doesn't use a tremendous amount of wood. It will keep it in a very comfortable 72, 74 degrees in here by adding a piece of wood maybe one every couple hours. It doesn't take a lot. But at nighttime we tend to load it a little bit heavier. It gets warmer in here. If I'm running the stove throughout the day, pretty much it's about 72, 74, something like that, I think. If my wife is running the stove, it tends to get a lot hotter in here. She likes it warmer. She's skinny, she's thin. I'm not, so she likes it much warmer. But it's a very, very warm feeling. You know, this thing radiates heat the whole time that you have a fire going. And I got to tell you, I put this. You see this? This is convoluted steel siding or roofing. I put that behind the stove, and there's a 1-inch air gap between. Actually, it's 1.5 inch air gap. No, that's 1 inch. It's 1 inch. That's right. 1-inch air gap between the metal and the wall behind it. And once I put that in, it radiates so much of that heat off that metal. It made a big difference in here. And then you'll see, you hear that noise, that's this box fan right here. You know, you can get blowers for these wood stoves, but my experience has been when you buy it, they're good for about a year or two when they run as much as ours do, and then they burn up. Well, the one for this stove is 140 bucks, and a box fan, that one's 3 years old now, and it was how much? 16 bucks. You know, they're not high quality things, but it works just fine. Keeps it plenty warm. Now, the other thing about the wood stove is, you see that fire brick right here? What that is I have a cold air return tied into the ductwork right there, and there's a fan that fire brick is sitting on top of. It's one of those old metal window fans that, you know, the two sides slide in and out. I put it in there, and I basically made it like a shroud, so it can only pull the cold air up, and it pulls the cold air from the farthest points of the house up behind the stove, and then the fan circulates it across the wood stove and heats it, so you get a thermal cycle is what we really end up having. And we have ceiling fans throughout, so that helps too, but it really does a nice job. And we started heating with wood here, I think the first winter we were here. We ran the furnace. I know the furnace worked, and while I was working on the house, I ran the furnace with the propane, and it was really cold. And I think at that time we didn't have the big tank full. I was using a grill tank, and it would last about 2 days. You know, while I was working here, because I was the only person here, and I wasn't heating it all the time. But we shut that furnace off. I haven't used it since, and I wouldn't turn it on without having it checked again to make sure it's okay. But I have no plans of using it. But usually as soon as the fire gets going, you see that's about, it'll actually, I can choke it down a little bit more and it'll slow down. I like to burn it hot, keeps the creosote out of the flue. That's another thing. I only clean this flue once a year, and that's out of obligation because this wood stove burns so clean and so hot. We only burn hardwoods, and they're usually very dry, that we don't get a lot of creosote buildup. I cleaned it every year I cleaned it the first 2 years, and there was like nothing. I mean, I could see all the way down from top to bottom, nothing on the sidewalls. It was pretty amazing. But I still do it every year just because you just never know if a bird gets in there, or who knows. So we clean it before every year. And as far as ash goes, I typically only clean this thing about 3 times a season. It is pretty efficient. When I load the stove, I take the ash shovel and I always roll the coals over to try and get a more complete burn out of the wood. If I'm doing that, we do a lot less ash than if you don't, because obviously it's more efficient. But anyways, usually what happens is as soon as the stove's going, and if, as soon as I got down here to turn the camera on, here come the dogs. Miley wants to lay right next to me, and Jeffrey, he typically lays right in front of the stove in the winter. We have a fire-resistant rug out in front of here for him that he likes to lay on. But and then of course we have the fire extinguisher there just in case we have troubles. But one thing about a wood stove is it makes a lot of dust, doesn't it?
Yes.
If you're one of the people that just can't stand dust and you don't like dirt, I mean, we don't like it dirty either, that's for sure, but it's a constant battle. Like, we sweep this ashtray almost every time we open the stove, because if you don't, you get ash on there and then the fan catches it and blows it, and then we sweep up this hardwood here every time. And that's actually a laminate. That's a fire resistant laminate that we put the stove on, just to help. And this over here is one of those fire retardant whatever blanket it's called. I don't remember what that thing's called, but you try and be as safe as you can. We use this kettle up here, you see. My wife puts water in it to add a little moisture in the air, and it works pretty well. We've got a damper here, and we got one in the flue pipe. I got the one in the flue pipe is as far as up as I can get it to help with the draft as much as I can, to kind of choke it down. But works pretty well. We like it. The dogs certainly like it. They love laying in front of this wood stove and sleeping, that's for sure. As a matter of fact, she went to Tractor Supply and got them 2 of those big Remington dog beds. And we lay them out in the wintertime, and they lay in here and sleep. But anyways, that's our wood stove. That's what we heat with. Thought we'd share that with you. Big difference once we did the radiant. I think I did that last year, didn't I?
What?
That steel back there. And we like the look. We like kind of more of the rustic look anyway, so it works out okay. So anyways, I'll leave you on that. Alright guys, we'll catch you on the next one.